Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to go over 3 awesome exercises to potentially help you with your tight calves. Now, lots of people approach me with questions on what to do for tight calves. And everybody seems to basically be doing the same thing, which is leaning against the wall, stretching their calf muscle. And most people seem to be disappointed that this isn't giving them the long-term relief that they hoped for. So today I'm going to cover some really high percentage exercises that you can use to help alleviate the tension in your tight calves. And we're going to expand our thinking and our approach. I'm excited to show you. Are you ready? Let's get into it. We're going to begin with what's called a tibial nerve glide. And what that is a mobilization for the tibial branch of the sciatic nerve. And the reason why we're actually going to start here is because mobilizing peripheral nerves can be super useful for helping to alleviate issues with muscles such as weakness, pain, tension, or even instability. And that's what we're going to do here. And I'm going to take you through a number of different steps that we put into a sequence. And we're going to put gentle tension on the tibial nerve. And once we have established that tension, it will feel like a gentle stretch. And then we're going to create some movement to stimulate and mobilize the tibial nerve. Now, the only thing that you need to know at this point really is the most important thing. And that's that when you're doing any kind of nerve tensioning drill, or nerve glide as we call it, you want to make sure that you don't overdo it with the amount of tension that you use. So I always tell people, make sure that you keep it gentle. We want a 3 out of 10 for intensity in terms of the stretch sensation that you are feeling when the nerve is under tension. And I will remind you of that here in just a moment once we get to the point where you start to feel it. So if you're going to start by targeting your right calf, then we're going to take our right leg and place it out in front of us. My knee is locked out. From here, what we're gonna do is lift our toes up towards our head. So I've extended my toes, and now I'm going to lift my foot up towards my head. So that's movements coming from my ankle. And now watch this little subtle movement here. While still maintaining the toe extension and the lifting of my foot, I've now moved my foot out towards the small toe side of my foot, but I have not rotated my hip. That's important because that's the common thing that people do. Instead, I actually now want you to rotate your hip in a little bit while still maintaining all the movements that we put together in the sequence in the lower limb. Take your leg, slightly move it in towards your midline, and now we have the position that we need for the lower body. Lengthen up nice and tall. Now I'm going to give you 2 options in terms of what we do with your trunk and your pelvis. Option number 1 is once the leg is in position, you can round your back. Now when I round my back, I get to about this point, I'm starting to feel a nervy stretch sensation on the back of my leg, particularly in the calf region and a little bit into my hamstring. Okay, so that's one option, and you'd want to keep that gentle. The other option is you lengthen up nice and tall, and instead of rounding your back, you're actually going to hip hinge, okay, forwards, like that. And actually, I now feel more tension with the hip hinge variation than I do with the spinal slumping variation. And you can choose whichever one is giving you the most sensation. Remember, that sensation has to be gentle, a 3 out of 10 in intensity. If you go too deep into the position and it's giving you more than what you would consider a 3 out of 10, then simply back off on the range of motion to now bring it back to a 3 out of 10. Okay? So here we are, and I am in the hip hinge. I feel the stretch through the back of my calf, even across the bottom surface of my foot and a little bit into the hamstring. That's good. I'm at a 3 out of 10 right here. And all I'm going to do now is unlock my knee and then lock my knee. Unlock my knee and lock my knee. And so notice how I'm maintaining the whole tensioning sequence, and I'm mobilizing now from the knee. We call this using the knee as the driver. And it's just a really subtle pulse at the knee. You'll notice that when you bend your knee, the tension that you are feeling becomes less. And then as you straighten it, the tension returns. And that's good. You want to feel that. So I'm going to do roughly 8 pulses and then shake it out. okay? So I'm gonna change my angle because I know that it can be kind of difficult to see what I'm doing with the foot. So here we go. I'm gonna still target my right side. Right leg starts out in front of me. Extend my toes first, so pull them up. Pull my foot up. Here's that subtle movement here. Foot out towards the small toe side, while keeping my knee straight and while maintaining those positions of the foot. I rotate my hip in and move my leg in. Lengthen up. Remember, you have two options here, either round or hip hinge. And I'm gonna stay with this hip hinge variation. So here's the tensioning sequence. I'm at a 3 out of 10. And now I'm pulsing from the knee. The common mistake here is that when people start to pulse at the knee, because it requires a lot of motor control to be able to hold this position and then move the target joint, what will happen is people will start to pulse at the knee, and then they'll gradually start losing the foot position, and then that becomes problematic because it's that exact foot position that we need to apply tension to the tibial nerve. So you have to constantly check to make sure that you are still in that position of the toes, foot, and ankle, while still driving from the knee and maintaining the exact position that we need. We need this exact position because this is what puts more tension on that tibial branch. And you still might feel it in the hamstring like I do, and that's perfectly fine. So 8 or 10 pulses, shake it out. And of course, if you wanted to do this on the other side because you have a left calf that needs some love, then we would go through the same sequence, toes up, foot out, lock the knee, rotate the hip in, move the leg in, lengthen up, and then just figure out which option you want. Okay, for me, when I hip hinge, I actually even have less range of motion and a higher level of neural tension with this one. So I'm not as deep into the position, that's okay. And then I'm just gonna now go into driving this from the knee. What you'll often find is that as you do repetitive sets of this, you'll notice that you might be able to go deeper into the position. And that's good. So that means that when you mobilize the nerve, it's actually reducing threat and taking away some of that tension that you initially felt. But after you've done these on either one or both sides, stand up, move around a little bit, test out how your calf muscles feel. You will be very surprised how much more effective this can be than simply leaning against the wall and stretching your calf. Remember, when we start mobilizing peripheral nerves, muscles get all their information, all of their commands that are coming from the brain. That information is arriving via that peripheral nerve. So we're actually upregulating the tibial nerve and helping the calf muscles because the tibial nerve supplies them. This is just a really, really cool exercise that can help with lots of different issues, particularly in the lower limb, and it's super high percentage if you're struggling with tight calves. This next exercise is called a knee circle, and it's a joint mobility drill. Now, when someone has a muscle complaint, it's really important to look at the muscle and see which joints are upstream and downstream of that muscle. So we're going to be doing a joint mobility drill for the knee simply because the calf muscle crosses the knee. Even though this is called a knee circle, it's also a wonderful mobility drill for the ankle, which is also of high importance if we're looking at the calf muscle, and now we're looking downstream of it. So really, really easy, just high percentage way to start dealing with muscle complaints is to look at the joints that live above and below. So here we go. What you're going to do is get into a forward 45 lunge position, okay? And when I step forward at this diagonal, most of my weight is here on my forward leg. And all you're going to be doing is taking your knee through a circle. And in order for you to do this, your hip is involved, so is your ankle and your foot. So in order for me to start the outside of this circle, I rotate my hip out. That allows my knee to start going out here. Then I allow my knee to travel over my toes without my heel picking up. And then finally, as my hip rotates inward, my knee can go to the inside of that circle. And I'm doing that in a very controlled way, trying to move through my fullest range of motion with control, and making sure that I'm not merging my trunk and pelvis to this motion. You do not want to twist. We want to stay nice and stable in the midline. I can do both directions. Again, just trying to keep my heel on the ground as my knees go forward of my toes, and really using my muscles to contract to create the largest circle that I can. I'm going to show you from a different angle here, and we'll switch to the left leg. So here's that forward 45 lunge stance, and now I'm going to start creating that circle. Notice how when I start to go to the outside of the circle, the arch of my foot is contracted. Okay, there's a lot of curve to the arch, but my foot is still flat on the ground, isn't it? I'm not, by accident, letting my foot kind of tilt, okay? I go through the circle, I start to go forward over my toes, and now as my knee comes to the inside of that circle, the arch of my foot is actually stretching and lengthening, and that's good, we want that. And then I arrive back at a locked out position, which is also key. You want to make sure that you get to full lockout, and then I repeat. And I'm making it as active as possible, really contracting my muscles to make sure that I'm moving through the largest range of motion that I can. I try to stay upright with my trunk, and again, working hard not to twist through the trunk. If you do have really tight calves, when you get to about here, you might feel a stretch on the calf. That's good. Just really focus on driving your heel down and back while still getting as deep into the position as you can. And you'll notice that that really requires a good amount of ankle mobility. And so this knee circle is actually a great ankle mobility drill. And ankle mobility is really a key feature or function to our gastroc function, which is our calf muscles. So again, like I was saying, this is about the knee, but the foot and ankle are really involved here, and that's a good thing. So this is a really high percentage mobilization for those of you who have tight calves. All right, I saved the hardest for last, for sure. This is called a ball of foot circle. It is another joint mobility drill, this one specifically targeting the midfoot. So what you're going to do here is, again, get into a forward 45 lunge. Only this time, you're going to lift your heel. So you're just going to hover your heel about that high off the ground, and you'll be on the ball of your foot. Now, the idea here is to take the midfoot through a circular motion. So what you're going to do is move your foot so that your weight shifts more towards the small toe, and now come up a little higher, roll across the base of each of your toes. Now you're on the inside of the circle, and then finally let your heel come back down, but don't let it touch the ground. You're still going to keep it hovering just a little bit. So when we put that together, what we're doing is creating this circular motion of the foot, and it's really challenging to coordinate for most people. Let me change my angle here a little bit because there is a lot to see, and the movements are super subtle and small. So I'm here in the stance, and now I hover the heel. I roll to the small toe side, I come up, I roll across the base of each of my toes, and now I come back down. Now notice how when I roll to the small toe side, I've built an arch in my foot. That's good, we want that. I come up, I now roll across the base of each toe, and now as I come to the inside of my circle, notice how my arch is starting to flatten, that's good, and I lower my heel, not quite to the ground, just keep it hovering, and then I repeat. And of course, I can change directions. So the idea here is to nail this coordination, and let me tell you, every muscle in my leg right now is burning as if I'm doing squats with 300 pounds, because it is a ton of work. Now let's look at some of the finer points and help you out with some of the common mistakes that happen. I'm going to shift over to my left side here, and here's that angle again. Hover the heel, and I'm going to roll to the outside, across, and now back down. As I'm making this rolling motion, or this circular motion, I'm trying really hard not to move my hip. Okay, if I were to do this and connect, kind of merge hip motion with foot motion, it would look like this. And you can see that my knee is moving through space a lot, almost is starting to resemble like the knee circle that we did. I want to stay as stable at the hip as possible. I don't want to see my knee moving from side to side very much. A little bit, it's okay, but actually a lot of the ability to create this circular motion with the midfoot is going to come from what's called tibial rotation, which is the ability of your lower leg to rotate. Okay, and that's really important for calf function as well. So keep the knee kind of where it is as best you can, and now start going through these ball of foot circles, you know, slowly and controlled, trying to nail your full range of motion. And now it's super fatiguing on the muscles of your leg because most of your body weight is shifted over this active leg. Once you kind of get the coordination down, you can focus on lengthening up, right, being tall so that you're in good posture. And you ultimately want to get to a point where you don't have to rely on your visual system, right, watching the body part that's moving in order to coordinate it. And that's really, really important. So hit both directions here. Work really hard at making it as active as possible. And you will feel all those muscles working really hard through your toes, through your midfoot, all the way up your calves, and even into your hips. It's a really, really challenging exercise. It's actually a very athletic one. You know, in my years of helping people that have complained about having tight calves, one of the things that I commonly see from these folks is that they just don't move their feet well. The joints in their feet just don't move good. Sometimes that's because of lack of exposure to this kind of training. Other times it's because of maybe footwear that they've worn on their feet for a long period of time. Whatever the reason is, it's something that I'm used to seeing, and you want to make sure that you can move your feet the way that they were designed to move. And by moving all the joints in your foot, you're improving your proprioception. You will also condition the muscles in your legs, specifically the calves, just being in that position and doing the work. And this is just an awesome drill that has helped a lot of people with their tight calves. So there we go, 3 really high percentage exercises that hopefully will help you with your tight calves. Now let me just summarize a little bit here because this is when people have questions. Number one, when you're going through these exercises, in terms of the nerve glide that we did for the tibial nerve, you can do 1 or maybe 2 sets of that, and you would be driving it from the knee, and roughly 8 to 10 pulses is totally sufficient. You don't have to do more than 1 or 2 sets, and remember that you want to keep it gentle, a 3 out of 10 in terms of intensity. Now, as far as the joint mobility drills go, like the knee circle and the ball of foot circle, those you can do a bit more repetition, and you're going to need that repetition in order to actually get good at those exercises. Listen, this is not something that you just do once and it fixes everything. Most people, when they start these joint mobilizations, because they demand so much motor control and mobility, most people are lousy at them. So you actually want to put the time in, treat it like a skill, and really work on the exercise. And I promise that it will pay you dividends in the long run, because improving your mobility and your motor control for your knees and your feet will certainly improve your calf function and help you relieve some of that tightness. So today we expanded the thinking and we expanded the approach. Okay, we basically looked at this through more of a neurologic lens. We took the complaint of tight calf muscles, and we looked to see what joints live above the calf and what joints live below the calf. So that's why we did joint mobilizations with your knees, your foot, and your ankle. We also mobilized the tibial nerve, which is a branch of the sciatic nerve. Why do we do that? Because the tibial nerve supplies the calf muscle. So by working on your joints and by working on your nerves, we're actually starting to speak to higher order systems in terms of our brain and our nervous system. And this is why this kind of thing usually has a much better payoff for people and helps them with long-term results rather than just leaning against the wall and stretching the calf and wondering why the results don't stick. So if you like this kind of thing and you want to learn more about applied neurology, then definitely check out my podcast, the Kruse Elite Podcast, because I talk about this stuff all the time and go much deeper. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Certainly comment if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to help you out with these exercises. And subscribe to the channel, and there'll be a lot more content to come. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.